Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our after-lunch panel, the realities of operating in Saudi and some things to consider. I've got a fantastic panel of some very experienced operators. Mohamed is much better looking than that, I have to point out. I'm going to start off with Atish. Atish is the Vice President for Apparel Group, and with the brand Tim Hortons and Jamie's and Sushi Library, Apparel have 150 F&B outlets. Cladys is our host here at Al Faisalia and is Corporate Director of F&B at Al Khozama, owners of LPM. We saw Nicholas on stage a little earlier, and has developed the Saudi restaurant Maze. And he has a long career in as a chef originally, so hopefully get some culinary perspectives there. And Richard is joining us from Al Moajil Hospitality, born and bred in Saudi. His observations are going to be invaluable, and including Nozomi, who will be talking to us about later. And finally, Mohamed, as CFO of Majd Foods, part of Al Hocair, has an impressive stable of brands, and we're going to be discussing the operational elements to do with those. So I'd like to welcome you to our panel. If you could join me on stage, please, panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
And everyone's neatly sat in order. That's very impressive. Well done.
Really? Yeah, almost.
Okay, so first point, and we've talked a little bit about this today already, about the talent question. I think we have a very penetrating early question this morning about remuneration. We're going to talk about wider aspects of that. How do you recruit and retain top talent, develop, draw them in, and make them part of a long-lasting team? Cladys, what about your perspectives on that?
Thank you, Jeremy. Well, ultimately, recruiting is, the foundation of the success of the restaurant. So it's your front line. Your front line is your bottom line. The restaurant industry is not for everyone. There are so many variables, and there's a lot of pressure in the kitchen, in the front, in the floor. So you want to make sure that we align those variables with the talent that we're looking for. There are things that happen in the kitchen, in the restaurant, such as a table of 50 become 70. The steward did not show up. The dishwasher is breaking. So the team go constantly in pressure. So looking for the right personality, for the right talent is key for any operator, regardless if you're operating in Saudi Arabia or elsewhere in the world. One of the methodology that we have recently discovered is job crafting. And job crafting basically it looks a little bit different from the conventional model of recruiting, where you're preparing your manning of front of the house and back of the house with the classic position of general manager, chef and sous chef, chef de rang and so on. But it's more like the other way around. So we're looking at the actual skill set of the talents and how can we leverage those skill sets in the restaurant. So we have several positions. They are basically job-crafted positions such as the brand ambassador of Maids, which is looking after the standard, and just an example. And we have discovered that you can really unlock the potential. Instead to use 20 to 30% of the employee potential, you can increase that to 70, 80%. It's been quite successful, and of course, you need to have a proper structure of running your floor and running your kitchen, but I think that is something that recently with human resources in Al Khozama has been quite effective.
And also you wrap some amazing benefits around the team. We talked about social events, support with gyms and other benefits. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, okay, so Saudi Arabia now, the diversification of the economy from the oil to the non-oil sector started in 2016, 2017. So we start to see restaurant no longer with the separation of male and female and family. Now everybody can join like anybody else around the world. And although it's still, we are in the capital of Islam, and we have to make sure that there is an understanding for the staff that we are bringing from certain nationality, that there is a respect of the culture and of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So for any operator to bring staff, and we have been through this, we have made some mistake in the past, and we learn from, we want to make sure that we are training the staff in terms of cultural, what is life here in Saudi Arabia, and making sure that there is an adaptation. So for an operator like us, we have really look at our benefit matrix and making sure that there are for certain nationality particularly, but this is in general for all our staff, that they have a good housing structure, there are good facilities such as gym, pool, sauna, and eventually social event that we can organize, and to make sure that we also reduce the turnover of the staff. We run now with Shadi, our Chief Human Resources, not only one colleague engagement survey a year, but 4 colleague engagement a year to make sure that we are doing well in the overall engagement of the staff, and the staff is happy, and we detect any yellow flag before it becomes red.
Thank you, guys. Richard, you were talking to me about the challenges when you opened up in Al Khobar and had 3 restaurants open at the same time, exactly the same time that COVID hit us. How did you retain and engage that team to make sure you were ready when the pandemic had passed?
Yeah, so our chairman, Mohamed Moajil, he developed the idea of opening these 3 restaurants at the same day, at the same time. Not more than 4 weeks into construction, the COVID lockdown hit, and we had already begun recruitment. We had about 187 people on board that we were planning to bring over. The lockdown came into effect. We weren't sure when people were going to be able to come. I think quite a few of us were in this position. What we ended up doing was we went to all of those teams that were involved. Some of them have never met us, other than through video calls. And our chairman decided to say, look, it's important that we invest in these people now so that they know when they arrive the type of people they're coming to work for. So throughout the entire the pandemic, for these people we'd never met, we paid their salaries. And this carried on. And we didn't know exactly when the pandemic lockdowns were going to let up. And even once the lockdowns were let up, as a lot of others in the industry will know, flights were very expensive. Once you landed, because not all vaccines were out yet, so once you landed, you then had the issues with quarantine hotel costs. You then had the PCR tests, which at the time were happily being charged at enormous rates. And should someone fail, they had to remain in there once again. Then certain countries, one day they would be allowed open, next day they would be allowed shut. We had certain people that we ended up covering their salaries for 2 years prior to them coming on and joining us, and they had never worked a day for us. But it allowed us to set the stage and tell our team, like, look, this is the investment we're willing to make in you guys. We know things are difficult, but hopefully when you land, it'll let you realize who it is you're coming to work with. And that was the important message, and our chairman and our CEO really wanted to get that out. So after we had a board meeting about it, we enacted it immediately.
Thank you. Atish, your culture in Apparel Group, you talked about promotion, fast promotion, which struck me as a really interesting phrase about creating a dynamic culture. Tell me more about that.
So, as a large corporate, we are mostly into brand building exercise. And when we say brand building, is not only the business itself, but it's people as well. We operate more than 2,000 stores across 14 countries, and in the kingdom around 600 stores. We employ around 5,000 people, and of that 60 to 65% is Saudi nationals. recruitment and retention has been a challenge in lower or higher degree all across. So question is not, is it a challenge or no? I think the question is, predominant question would be, what do we do with that challenge? And in our answer to internally how we answer that is that we have to engage them in core of the business and not only on the surface. So coming out of pandemic, as Richard just mentioned, we used to keep large bench of people because we rapidly were expanding. During pandemic, we couldn't do that because our P&L did not support it. So how we kind of tackled is, we created an academy, training academy. So we hire fresh talent, not only from Riyadh, but from outside of the Riyadh, also smaller towns, and put them on fast track. So any employee who joins Apparel group has option to enroll into these management courses. They are modules in terms of customer service, P&L, and so on and so forth. So if they pass it out while they are working, they are studying, they are on the fast track to promotions, and they get on to the next management positions. So what has it created is that there are people who have joined at a very junior level and end up becoming managers, which other Saudi nationals have seen, that this company is growing the people and they are part of the whole vision of the company. So that has created a referral cycle, and more Saudi nationals are referring their colleagues and friends and family, and that's how recruitment has become easier, and at the same time, people are happier and we are part of the whole system. So that's how we have kind of addressed at our age.
Okay, and Mohamed, the idea of engaging with your team and engaging them to the brand that they're working for, and you have many brands at Majd Foods. I loved the idea of how you created brand connection to Bruno, one of the brands that you have. How did that work?
It's really very interesting to hear some stories about how the brand was created. So when you understand the story, then the first customer to serve will be your staff. So they need to leave that story and then be able to understand it properly. And then to the extent that they can spread the passion, the enjoyment with the customer who's going to visit the location. So what we did in Bruno as a Michelin star brand is a French brand created by Michelin star chef, and then the story is so wonderful and it's tied up with the French culture. So what we were thinking about is to have a good mix of staff in our location. So, and those people, we let them live their own environment here in Saudi Arabia, so they don't feel away from where they belong first. And then we choose to do it in the location itself as well as in the accommodation. So we get them together for their lunch or dinner, whatever it's happening, and then they hear French music, just per se, the French old music, Edith Piaf, Jacques Brel, something that is appealing for the age of the guy who is actually the creator of the brand. And then they just like we fuel them with the love and the passion with the brand, and then we took them away from their country, yet we bring in that culture here. And then whenever they are in the operating platform, they can spread the same feeling and storytelling to their customer. So today, they're not going to serve a salad to your table, but it's going to be from the garden of the owner of the brand to your table as a journey. So they really live that experience and then pass on it same to the customer. So the main takeaway from what we did on this is to make sure you satisfy your staff. And then by doing that, they can technically and easily, in a natural way, deliver the same experience to your customer. The other minor one, but it's really big in terms of learning, is we have a library inside the restaurant. And in that library, there is a selection of books by the chef himself. And it's an open library for the staff to use, but also it's an open library for staff to use and read for some of the kids in the restaurant itself. So it's beyond just delivering food to table, but it's really around leaving a certain experience and then spread the story in a very nice way to the customers.
So we've created an amazing relationship with a team that's well recruited, retained, and well motivated. How do we engage with the customer? How do we create strong brand connection and demand with the Saudi customer? Richard, I'm going to go over to you with your lifetime of experience of the Saudi customer. How did you go about making your market and a strong connection with them?
So, for those of you who don't know, obviously we just recently opened Nozomi, the new one in Riyadh, just over the road, actually, from the hotel. And as someone who was born and raised here, I was born in Riyadh back in the 70s and raised in Riyadh and Jeddah. My godfather's from Jeddah. So I've watched the kingdom grow up over the decades to see it as it is now. And one of the first things that we tend to find is, speaking as someone who's basically a local, when we see a lot of international brands come to Saudi, they try and exact the same rules that they've done either in Europe, US, or wherever it is that they've come from here locally. And I've heard it mentioned a couple of times. I think Nicholas has brought it up a few times as well, saying that it's incredibly important that you sense check whatever it is that you do when you bring it to the market. And sense check, it means employ, bring on board as many people from the country as possible in different age and dynamics as well. And they'll give you palettes and they'll let you know if your product's going to work here or not, or if it's going to require change. You know, heat affects our palette in different ways. Humidity, if you're in the Eastern Province or in Jeddah, that affects your palette in different ways. So the cookie cutter experience doesn't work. So building loyalty with your guests and enticing them in just means you've actually got to listen to them. If someone in your restaurant tells you something's wrong or something isn't right, don't just take it as a one-off. You know, people in Saudi are very conservative about giving negative feedback. They don't tend to enjoy doing that. They much prefer to tell you when something's great, due to the hospitable nature here. So if you're lucky enough, and I say the word lucky because it is, if you are lucky enough to receive some form of feedback in terms of criticism, take it on board and actually listen to it and go back and enact on it. And you'll find the more that you do this, you will gain huge amounts of success, and especially with that person that comes back, and if they do see it, because here it's very much a community where people talk to each other. So getting that whisper going back out that their feedback was taken on board means a lot. So for me, that tends to be my biggest way of converting and retaining guests.
And Atish, your understanding and perspective of the market, because of the scale of the brands that you're working with, how do you balance the portfolio and understand which market sectors you're looking at?
So, the Saudi customer is young. I mean, average median size, average median age of the Saudi customer is 31 years, which is pretty young customer you are addressing to. And they are tech savvy. Just to give you some stats on how Saudi customer is engaging at a different, in different ways. So of the 36 million Saudis, 99% internet penetration is there. Of that, 80% is on social media. And a big data point which we internally look at is that 7 hours every day average Saudi resident is on internet, and of that precisely 3 hours and 1 minute on social media, which tops WhatsApp is the number one, where 45% of these 80% are actually stalking and communicating with families and friends. But again, very important data point is 31% of social media usage is people are looking at products to make a purchase. Or they are doing some sort of search in terms of where to go, and they are looking for some sort of content. So engaging Saudi customer is, I think, the best way is through social media in our view. And I think technologically you have to make yourself advanced enough. Now, I wouldn't go to the digitization of the processes and all. That's all hygiene now. Should you be on delivery platform or no? Or should your delivery orders straight away talk to your POS? I think that all is done with. It is hygiene nowadays. But how you are actually communicating with your customer is a bigger data point, and I think that's where focus should be.
Thank you. And Mohamed, in terms of entertainment, we talked a lot about restaurant experiences needing to be entertaining, and clearly dancing to EDPF with your staff is one thing, but how do you engage the customers with entertainment?
I just want to open. It's unusual to see finance person being part of such discussion, but being here for 17 years, 10 years in luxury, and then 7 years in mass market, the customer is the same. It's actually looking to be entertained and to be treated properly. So from an entertainment point of view, I would like to share what we did in one of our Lebanese, this time, Lebanese restaurants. So we have one of the Lebanese restaurants, and then it's an casual dining environment. So let's say that we have the 70% of the staff from Lebanon, Jordan, and then 30% from Saudi. They are really very well connected with something called dabka. So it's like in the DNA. We want them to have fun while delivering their job, and then also offer the customer free entertainment that's happening every hour. So we took them, we trained them, we create head of the team dabka beside the fact to be commis or whatever role from a job description point of view, and then we looked at the traffic happening on that location. But the most interesting learning, and this is honestly, luckily we can track it, we can share the result, 5 million views on the first show. So it's something new, not announced, happening on spot, but happy customer took video, and then it's spread like fire. It really went viral, and then the happiness was shared between staff. I'm dancing my own culture, and then I'm sharing that experience with the customer. So now that location is driving much more interesting traffic. But the learning again is Saudi customer. I've heard some comment in the previous panels. We've taken them as granted for many years. We've looked at the pocket. We've never looked at the brain. What we've seen now, they are open, culture-minded, interested, and hungry to know more, to understand more. And we need to treat them with this level of esteem. It's really a sophisticated customer. It's not an easy take. And then they are quality-minded, yet they would like to pay fair price. But still quality-oriented people. They are happy with the international concept, yet they would like to see some local touch in the concept itself. So it's really, it will be very interesting to plug GPS on a Saudi consumer and follow him for 3 days. You're going to see him taking tea from drive-thru, going into Michelin star fine dining, and then sitting in Kabsa in the middle of nowhere. So try to learn. So you need research, you need to adjust and really customize the way you approach this customer.
So building on that point of customization, Cladys, you have some brands, franchise brands like Yaarcha and Meraki. What is your principle about being able to localize those to reach that Saudi audience?
Yeah, from all the brands that we have acquired in the last 5 years, so we have noticed some brands are quite strong on their DNA as far as their standard operating procedure, going really in details on the overall operation of the restaurants, whether it's front of the house, back of the house, and some other really give you more like an overview of how to operate a brand. One of the things that we have noticed on some of the brand, on the top of my head, I remember one particular brand, the 5 top best-selling dishes in London were the lowest in Riyadh. So clearly, it's crucial really for any operator who are coming to the kingdom to do a good pestle analysis, a good SWOT analysis, get as much data as possible, look at the competitor, check what all are the best-selling dishes, and then, when you have all that data, clearly then looking at the palate adaptation, so you want to twist the menu to make sure that you're going to the right direction. And then, if you focus on training and development with your staff, and you don't make employees responsible for something they don't know, which is quite common. Sometimes, in particular for venture capital or joint venture, they put a capital together, and then there is an urgency to open for whatever scope they want to achieve, and the scope is really, the objective is to open. And it's extremely risky, because here in the kingdom now, you have one shot. And they're coming, and if you mess around and you have guests who are extremely influential in the kingdom, the recovery is very, very difficult. So you have to move very cautiously. You have to open and start with your 30 cover, 40 cover, until you're sure that you have the operational capability to stretch yourself to 100, 150, 200 cover. That's a sustainable way, particularly in this market condition where you have a lot of changes in the way we are, I would say, the landscape of restaurant are coming to the kingdom, and also the government legislation, which try at the same time to adapt and work hand by hand to make sure that there is a proper economic growth together.
Yeah, okay. And Atish, from a more multiple perspective, what opportunities have there been to apply some local differentiation to the core brand?
So it doesn't start once we sign a brand. It starts a long before. As a portfolio of brands, we look at what is missing in the market. We kind of sense what gaps are there, and how do we do that? There are two research we do. One is internal and one is external. Externally, we look at feedback of a particular industry, particular cuisine. Competitor feedbacks we look at from Google search, from social media. So all these feedbacks put together from external side, and we kind of sense what is the customer pain point, what is missing in the market. And internal, we run a very successful loyalty program called Club Apparel, and we are very proud of it. We started it 12 years back. We have 5 million subscribers and app downloads across GCC. And of that, 2 million customers are in Saudi Arabia. So that gives us enough insight into what is missing in the market. And from there we go, and if there is a pain point in the customer's mind, we kind of try to create a rough solution around it, and then we look for that solution. If it is anywhere available internationally, a brand, we just sign it, and if it does not, then we create something of our own. But chances of success is much higher when you actually go back and do your research beforehand, you signing up a brand and then trying to adapt it. Just for an example, Tim Hortons, when we signed in North America, we were the first partner for them. They never came out of North America. So we saw their super brewed coffee-based business versus our market is more espresso-based coffee. So we had to work around, and also sandwiches, what they sell, majority is cold sandwiches versus our market takes warm sandwiches. So these are details, but product differentiation or the brand differentiation starts long before we sign up or do anything with the portfolio.
Okay, thank you, Atish. Mohamed, educating the brand owner on the local market can be quite a challenge. Tell me about Sarah Beth and the experience you had trying to tell her about the market in Saudi.
Yes. I mean, honestly, I'll take really practical examples. So we have an American brand. We have an American brand with a wonderful menu. But in that menu, there's nothing called pasta, and there's nothing called mashawi. So you spend money, you build a concept, and the customer is at the entrance, and they say, "Andak mashawi." So do you have grilled things? The answer of the guy will be no, because we don't have it. I mean, and then do you have pasta? No, we don't. So now the challenge here is to build connection between what the customer is looking for with the name. The way you want, you should name it that name. And then go and explain to the brand owner that, yes, in Sarabet DNA, there's no pasta. Now you will have to have it added into your menu. So it's really not an easy it's not an easy game. So it's really someone was talking about raising baby. So brand owner is looking at the brand as own kids. So to touch the menu or ingredient, it's very challenging. So now it will take time to try, apply, make some evolution to the understanding and play with the terminology, and then make sure you get something that is not pure pasta to become pasta and then appear in the menu. So once you get the customer with what he wants, my pasta, sitting on the table, you can sell the remaining part of the menu. So but as long as you didn't unlock that key password from the customer, you will never be able to grant that customer. So my point on this is just comparing cloudy water with the blue ocean. Your brand and DNA is the blue ocean. It's all for you. The cloudy area is what we educate the customer just to look for mashawi, look for pasta, look for... So get yourself into that and then take your customer to your blue ocean and then sell your menu. So luckily, I'm talking about our brands, we've seen very nice flexibility. So Bruno is worldwide known for truffles. If we would just sell just truffles, we might wait to find the right customers. Then we have to expand the menu, and then we've got the listening of the brand owner to see what can we do to make sure we get the customer inside, and then we share the experience. So there's some flexibility in it. So as I said, I've been here for 17 years. I can talk about luxury, and I cannot talk about today, fine dining. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, some luxury brands, if you tell them entrance of the store has to be gold-plated, you don't change it. You do it, or you don't take my brand. That was the way it used to be. Today, they listen to you. That's not environment friendly. Let's do something that is different. Customer perception. So they listen, they follow. So there is an evolution even in the mind of the brand owners. So I think they understand better the consumer.
Okay, thank you, Mohamed. One final question for you, Richard, related to supply chain. We haven't really had time to talk about it much, but your story of becoming your own licensed importer was quite an interesting one.
Yeah, so I've heard a few people talk about some of the challenges we face on finding the products that we're looking for in the market. And not so much finding the product we're looking for, but the sustainability of that product and the sustainability of the price point of that product that we buy it in at. So this was a pandemic decision. So we actually took a step back and decided we would actually take care of that problem. So during the pandemic, we actually set up AMH Imports. So from that, we actually aligned just over 3,200 SKUs, which we import. So we have our own farms in Japan, so we bring in 38 species of fish. And we actually now supply some of the big four suppliers in Saudi, which now go out to the restaurants here in Riyadh, amongst many, many other products. And the sole decision behind that is we have a big diversification going on in our portfolio. So we just announced that we partnered with Ralph Lauren. So we would be opening the Ralph Lauren cafes across Saudi Arabia and the UAE, amongst some other things with them as well. In addition to that, we're start this year on our first 2 of 4 hotels. And because of all of this, we decided that one of the biggest crux in our industry is, and our largest cost center is food cost. And with geopolitical things going on and the constant rise of food costs, we decided we would take this into our own hands. So one of the things as groups grow, it's always worthwhile thinking is, how much of my system can I control? And food cost is such a huge part of our system, but sometimes we don't treat it with the importance and relevance that it deserves. And doing stuff like this has, I'll be very honest, from our group side, we reduced our food costs by 8.1% by setting up our own import business. So, thanks.
That'd be a great subject to talk some more on, but unfortunately we haven't got any more time. I just want to thank our panelists for their excellent contribution and observations. And if there are any questions specifically for them in the audience. James has disappeared with the microphone, so but I think we're okay. We're good. Right, so thank you very much.
Thank you.